Live. Collive. All right. Wait, is my shirt inappropriate? Well, this is an age inappropriate channel anyway, right?
So everybody is shirt. Queers for whole milk. You can get this on my Redbubble.
I made it myself.
No, I made it myself.
You made it myself.
Devin did pose for the reference.
Yeah, I'm a penis model.
You should put that on your resume.
And my parents said I'd never amount to anything. Turns out I'm good for dick.
Oh, it's better than being good for shit.
Yeah, there's that. So,
what do you think we watched? Guess in the comments. Okay, well, wait. Just kidding. We have no viewers.
How long were we going to wait?
I guess this amount of time.
I mean, I guess there'd be a threshold, right? You're below a certain level, you wait till all of your viewers have filled it out. Like if there was 5, we wouldn't just wait okay, 4 of them are done. Fuck you, number 5. But if it's upwards of 100, it's you got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
No, 5 minutes is too long.
Yeah, 1 minute.
You got 1 minute.
But
yeah, that's too long too.
No, not if we're reading the chat, reading people's guesses and stuff.
I guess.
But if we did start doing that, we would have to change the name of the stream and not put the movie title until after the stream. Because then people would automatically know what movie it is because it's in the title.
I smell my own brain burning from that thought, though.
What do you mean?
Well, what would we call it then?
Well, we'll just call it Holler or our number whatever, and then we'll add the name of the movie after.
But then we're not going to skim any viewers off of anyone looking up The Feast. Yeah, now I smell your brain burning too.
Yeah, but what's the likelihood that someone's searching for it while we're live? We'll still get those people who search it after. They just won't come to the live. They would come to the video later.
So we'd have to change the title later?
Yeah, it takes a minute.
Man, that's a lot of work.
Fine. We won't do guess the title of the movie games then.
This is YouTube. This is not the place you go to work. Work your ass off.
Where you go to learn, boy.
At least not for me. I know a lot of YouTubers probably work a bit, but I guess I haven't actually seen any of them work, so I can't really say for sure.
Anytime you watch the video, you're watching them work.
Yeah, so they work for what, 30 seconds?
Well, no. They probably work a lot more than that. But you said you've never seen them work. I was just saying you have seen them work. Your ASMR girls, that's work.
Yeah, I guess so. Presumably some time had to go into figuring out what all the setup was. But all I'm saying is I don't actually know.
I've never seen an electrical engineer work. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, as far as you know, I don't work.
As far as I know, you don't work.
That's always a fair assumption.
Layoff jokes.
You would also think that
Actually, I did see you work when you worked from home.
Did I work when I worked from home?
Yeah, you were an asshat, remember?
Yeah, that was at one of my last jobs.
I'm still saying I watched an electrical engineer work.
I guess that's true.
But you're watching this video and you need an electrical engineer. Devin's looking for a job.
I guess I'm at the point where if you need electrician work done too, I shouldn't be your number one, but I'm not above that.
Don't you need a license to be an electrician?
Yeah, I guess I would assume so.
I don't think you can legally work as an electrician.
I don't know. I haven't actually looked it up to be able to know for sure. I would definitely assume so though, just because like that shit can get really dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, and you can really you can fry some stuff if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, if you're looking for a front end web developer, I'm also looking for a job.
Boom.
I'm also great at doing crafts and cutting tiny hearts out of citrus peels.
And making t-shirts.
I draw.
Well, now this is turning into an interview. So, The Feast.
The Feast. We watched this movie twice.
We decided it had enough rewatchability that it was worth watching a second time to keep a weather eye out for some of the foreshadowing that they do in it, bits that I missed the first time through. It was definitely worth watching a second time too.
I will say though, the first time I watched it, I like full attention on the screen. Second time I watched it, I was playing Cult of the Lamb during the movie. So I was casually watching it the second time.
I'd say I was probably about as attentive the second time around as I was the first time around, which was, reasonably so. I only looked at my phone like once or twice, I think. This time around, though, I took a lot more. I also knew which parts to like make sure I was really tuning in for as well. Like there were, like once I knew enough of the plot points, like I knew which I was able to pick up on various plot points a lot more easily this time around. They show you a picture that doesn't really make any sense the first time you watch it, and then the second time you watch it after you've sort of seen like what is the plot of this movie, what is the payoff of this movie, you kind of realize like, oh wait, that picture is important. They're talking about important things there.
Well, also, if you're new here, heavy spoilers this whole time. We do not do spoiler-free discussion.
Yeah. It's too tough to tiptoe around that.
To tiptoe.
I didn't get an electrical engineering degree because I like doing hard work. And no, that's not a joke. Yeah. I thought the movie was really good.
Great movie.
I thought it was very well done, very well acted. I thought everything in it was like I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. I think I'll just get my little nitpicks out of the way right now. I thought there were some bits that were a little over explained, like they weren't sure that we'd pick up on or like catch or remember certain pieces that were set up earlier in the film, like spoilers starting now. There's a bit where like the main antagonist lays a trap basically for a guy she's gonna seduce and fuck. The trap is a piece of glass that she sticks in her vagina. That might sound dumb if that's all you knew, but it works, and there's a reason why it works. But when he starts having sex with her, they literally replay the scene in the background to show her putting the glass up her vagina again, as though we just forgotten that very memorable little bit of like, oh no, don't do that, don't put that there, that's not fun.
See, that scene reminds me of like, I imagine the producers of The Matrix, that made them like dumb the movie down. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
was there some like person with money, you know, who was like, I don't think people will remember that she put a big shard of glass in her vagina. We should remind them.
Well, and I think it's fair to maybe make the assumption that like somebody might have forgotten or overlooked that, like, oh, that glass is still just lodged in her vag, and he is now like thrusting right into that piece of glass that's stuck in her vagina, and oh, that's why she did it before. But I think like a better way to do things like that, to like refresh our memory, would be like not just show us the same scene that we already saw, but like do something else.
Sure.
Like after she's done with him, like the glass falls out of her vagina or something like that. Like I think there are more artistic and fluid ways, or would be a good word for it. Much more subtle ways to remind us that she stuck a piece of glass up her vagina before, and that's a trap that she set. So, and that's not the only time it happens there. That one was just the most egregious instant of that, where they kind of like just overtly say, hey, remember this bit over here? Well, just reminding you of that so that you know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that I have a little bit of an issue with is the way the movie jumps around. It does kind of jump around, change scenes and tones in a way that feels a bit disjointed, almost like it was a lot longer, and then they cut it up and then stitched it back together into something a bit shorter.
Yeah.
Which, it's not terrible. It still works very well, and it's still like it's not so jarring or obvious that it took me out of the film in any way, and it's
no skin on Marink.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But like there are some bits where it's like there's a panic over finding one of the brothers all of a sudden out of the blue, and then like next scene it just gets dropped.
Yeah.
Things like that. Or like somebody gets stabbed or they're in pain, and then we're just somewhere else. Like when the brother is just out in the middle of the forest with his wounded leg, I did kind of wonder, like, how did he get out there? Did she carry him?
Yeah. That's another thing too. She's like hired help, and nobody is questioning how much she's just like sitting in fields and shit. Like
Yeah.
Not that I think that someone like needs to be working every second. I'm just like, I just can't imagine that lady with her like neuroticism who hired her not being like, time to lean, time to clean. Like
Yeah.
So
especially when like I don't know, like especially when she did seem to be so high strung during like their setup for the feast. It did kind of seem the moments where like she was just randomly hanging out behind a shed with one of the brothers, or just sitting around or something, like it did seem a little bit like, is she supposed to be working right now or something? Like,
yeah.
And maybe that's also a bit.
It might be a cultural difference too.
Yeah,
from
maybe.
the United States and Wales. The movie is set in Wales and is in Welsh. It's not. It's a subtitled movie.
Fun fact to demonstrate how dumb I am: I didn't even know there was a Welsh language before this movie.
But we still love them.
Learn something new every day. Anyway, those are really my only two main criticisms, and they were very mild. They were very little things for me.
Well, the first time we watched it, you had the criticism that they didn't elaborate more on the brother being a rapist.
Yeah, that's a good point. So there is a bit that kind of comes out of it does feel like it just kind of gets dropped there. They hint at it a little bit. When I watched it the second time, I listened for like, was there more hinting of this? The one brother, they make it kind of clear. One brother, there's two brothers. This family is two brothers, a mom, and the father. Papa. And the two brothers, they're kind of both shames on the family. That is stated overtly. The one brother is sort of a shame on the family because he got into drugs. He nearly
sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Well, at least drugs. He apparently OD'd at one point and had to be like taken to the hospital and saved. So he is kind of out in the country with the family right now, as opposed to in the city where he wants to be, because he's basically being watched. He's on short notice because he nearly killed himself, not on purpose either. The other brother, they kind of say that he's also a shame on the family. And they say that he was a doctor, but he dropped his practice, and they kind of hint a little bit that
Was he a doctor, or did he quit med school?
I thought it said he
quit his residency or something.
I thought it said he was a doctor.
Oh, okay.
He at least worked as a doctor, I thought.
I can't remember.
But he was some sort of like medical practitioner. He had some sort of credentials where he worked with patients, I think.
And raped them.
Well, and like the extent to which they go is they kind of hint that like he's in trouble. He's also kind of in trouble for things. There is he's also kind of brought shame on the family. They don't really say what he did or really go too far into it, other than to say that he's also kind of in trouble and on the hook for dad's money. And then like at some point later in the movie, in a very extreme high stress area, the other brother just kind of drops out of nowhere that like he was raping patients.
Yeah.
Raping female patients. And like, it makes sense, but it was one of those things where I kind of wished, I thought there should have been a little more legwork put into that. They kind of like showed that he seemed a bit sketchy, bit weird.
He does have creepy sexual energy. He's always like touching himself, like.
He seemed to be very into himself and his own body, like in a very strange way. But like, I wouldn't have necessarily gotten like rapist vibes out of that. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe Buffalo Bill vibes or some shit early on. So yeah, and that's another reason why like I kind of wonder if there was more to this movie earlier on that just got chopped out to make it a little bit more efficient or a little bit shorter.
Well, yeah, and my top complaint was that the musician brother, I didn't really feel like I understood why he was being punished the same as everybody else. Like, he seemed like, I mean, he likes living in the city and he likes drugs. Like, to me, that just doesn't make as much sense as like why everyone else needs to be punished. But on the second viewing, he is the one who says this line of like, maybe your kids are such fuck ups, maybe you need to like look at yourself, something like that to the dad.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a part that's when they're talking about his drug use and why he's in trouble.
Yeah. So when I saw that line the second time watching it, I was like, maybe a movie is trying to hit a like sins of the father thing too. You know, like it doesn't actually matter whether what he did is extra horrible. Like he is paying for the sins of his father in his own way.
Yeah. Well, my take on it was that like, because I wasn't entirely sure how much of a rapist the if the brother was actually a rapist or if that was just something that like the other brother was just yelling out in a moment of like high stress. The other and like the rock and roll brother, the musician brother, I also wasn't sure that he really did anything to deserve his fate. Uh, and largely my take was like the goddess that's kind of inflicting all of this on them. She's a fucking force of nature that's decided to come and rain wrath down upon this family and their benefactor. So to some extent, it doesn't really matter if or deserves got nothing to do with it. She's just there to clean house and kill everybody.
I just had a thought. He's the one, his leg gets eaten at the end of the movie, and he's the most innocent one. And earlier she made a comment about them eating innocent animals.
Oh.
I wonder if that is on purpose.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Because earlier I had the thought that he wanted to run away, and his punishment is ultimately losing his leg.
Mm.
The other brother, to the extent he's a bad person, he's a rapist, he loses his dick. And then, well, I don't know how the other two fit in necessarily, but like those two seem to like those punishments seem to fit the personalities of the people they were being inflicted on. So the bit where like he is kind of an innocent and she's eating his leg, like that's an interesting point.
Yeah. So the other two punishments totally made sense to me. The one guy is mining into her body if she is like of the land,
Right.
And so she has him shove a skewer in his ear,
Right.
Which I think is very much like, you're like drilling metal into my body. Now you're gonna drill metal into your body.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And then the
mom
sales guy.
Well, the mom is afraid of becoming her mom, and so she's forced to like
wear her mom's clothes and jewelry and
be her mom for a spell and experience her children's suffering. And then the other guy is obviously a greedy pig.
Yes. So he has to eat nonstop and eat the human flesh. I actually don't think the mom is directly being punished. I think she's the one that's supposed to be taught a lesson. From my perspective of the movie, no women get physically harmed in this movie.
But
only the men.
Well, but there's two women that do get harmed because the mom slits her throat at the end.
She does?
Yeah, our copy of the film gets cut short, but apparently she does slit her own throat at the end.
Oh, I did not know that.
Well, because we looked it up afterwards when it cut out. I was like, what the fuck? God damn it. But there's that. And then also, I mean, the body of the goddess, or the body that the goddess is inhabited, was taken from another girl who by any account, was an innocent person.
Mm-hmm.
She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. In fairness, it's not quite clear if her death was an accident, just in a car accident, as car accidents happen, and then the goddess just took the opportunity and like, oh, free body, mine. Or if the goddess did in fact kill her and take her body.
I am proud. The first time we watched it, early on, I was like, that is not her fucking body. Like, that, her behavior does not seem like someone who's in
I'm gonna grab more water.
Their body. And the other thing that I noticed the first watch that the other two people we were watching with didn't like really register with them was that her hair was staying wet. Well, first I thought like that's seems really like unprofessional to like arrive at the job with like soaking wet hair, but then her hair was staying wet so long. And then the body she took is someone who drowned in a car in the river. So in retrospect, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, I was happy that I had those noticings before they were revealed.
There's actually two more things that you just made me remember too, because I thought it was interesting that she walks to the house when she gets there rather than driving. But she's walking because she literally just walked out of the lake, and her clothes might be dry and not her hair because she walked there and that gave her clothes time to dry out, but not her hair.
Yeah. What are some other things? There's the sauna. Which I think saunas are great. I'm a sauna addict even. But her sauna was especially cell-like. But I think if I had the house, I would love that. I would spend a lot of time in that sauna too. I felt like she was a little shamed for the sauna.
Well, I thought that was, and that might be a bit where we're also kind of city folk, but I also thought it was strange that she made such a thing out of her own sauna. And it was kind of a point where I think one of the points of that is to show how out of touch she is with her friend.
Oh, she did one of the most annoying rich people things that I hate when people do, which is like they walk you around their house and they tell you how much they paid for every single item. It's like, this costs this much money, this costs this much money. It's like, I am okay. Like, great job.
Well, I think that was actually one of the things that was really good about her character is that they laid a little bit there to show that she didn't come from money or anything. She grew up on a farm doing farm work and everything, where she at one point she might have been a bit more connected to the land, so to speak. But at this point now, they outright say that she only comes to the city every so often. I didn't catch this the first time I watched, but she spends most of her time in the city. She only comes out to that house every so often. That's not even her original house. They tore down her original house and made that. Most of the stuff that she kept from her childhood home was just sparse, and she just leaves it in storage because it doesn't feel right. And then I thought it was the way she goes about showing her childhood friend this house just seems such a rich thing to do, where she doesn't really have any value on it beyond what she paid for it.
Yeah, the point about them not even living there, like they're draining all the resources from this land that they like don't even live on anymore, really stuck me the second time watching it.
Yeah. I also thought too that like, I mean, especially the second time watching it, there were so many things that I picked up on that were very like, that were just so out of touch in her character and so cringy in her character. Like the like how drunk she actually was compared to like her friend. Like I noticed the second time around, the friend who they're trying to like there's something about it too that at face value is like is silly on arrival when you realize like how out of touch she is with her friend, I should say, in quote fingers, because like the whole purpose of this feast was to convince her childhood friend to sell her farm to
No, to lease her land, so let people mine on her
right
land, not sell the land though.
right convince her childhood friend to lease her land so that they could mine on it. And I think part of the idea was that like, oh yeah, we're childhood friends, so we'll have her over for dinner, and I'll use my relationship with her to kind of convince her to go along with it. But like when they talk, it's like when they talk in the movie or when they interact in the movie, it's like, when's the last time these two people have exchanged any kind of words? Like, when's the last time these two people have like said hello at all?
Well, and also the way she's trying to convince her friend is like, I think she feels like it's so obvious, like money is the most important thing that exists.
Yeah.
So like all I have to do is tell her she's going to make money and she'll do it, you know? But they didn't actually do a good job catering like any experience to the friend.
No.
Like you brought up the drinking and stuff. Like if you're having someone over and you want to convince them of something, you would like match how much they drink. You wouldn't like
I mean, if anything, my goal, I mean, the standard classic goal would be that like, no, I'm not going to drink as much as you. I'm going to give you a shot, let you take it, and I'll pass this round. If anything, if I'm trying to like convince you of something,
I mean, that might upset some people. But
that might upset.
You gotta know your audience.
Well, that might upset some people, but only to the extent that they notice. So, like, the goal would be to like just be casually drinking, but keep yourself, if anything, keep yourself less inebriated than the person you're trying to schmooze, because then, like, even if they get embarrassed, it's like, oh, it's all good, it's okay, because you were in control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're completely shit faced, it's like you have no control over this situation, and you're not going to be able to judge what's going on to the best extent. Like there's definitely an arrogance about the way they approach her, and just that like, we'll make you a shit ton of money. Don't you want to retire like well and not have to worry about like money when you retire or anything? Like if they just assume that they'll be able to waltz right in, write a check, shit on her. They shit on her beliefs and superstitions. The fact that like the mom didn't like was completely out of touch with how deeply held those superstitions were, like is just another layer of like why did you think you were going to be able to walk in here and like leverage any kind of relationship or leverage any kind of like childhood relation at all?
Yeah. And also, I noticed the second watch too, the lady who was the visitor, I can't remember her name. Mare. When she comes in, she's like, sorry,
Linda, that's the mom's name.
Sorry it was so hard to figure out a date, you know?
Yeah.
So part of me wondered the second watch is if the mom was being kind of like aggressive about trying to plan this dinner, and maybe Mare had like didn't want to do it that much, you know, because she kind of like knows it's like her annoying friend that made a bunch of money.
Yeah, or just like this weird friend that like I haven't heard from you ever. Like,
yeah. So I wonder if it actually like took quite a few tries for Mare to be like, okay, I'll come over for dinner, you know.
Well, the other aspect too is like, you know, we just talked about like the alcohol level and everything, but like even the dinner in and of itself is so like fancy and expensive and exotic, and like they have a scene there where like Mare just kind of like she doesn't like the food, she can't eat it.
Oh, because it's like city food.
I don't even know if it's city food, but it's just like so. It's like someone who's only ever had like 3 dishes their whole life, and now you're trying to introduce them to like hot peppers or something. Like they're not going to be able to eat that. They're not going to want to eat that.
It was interesting what I can't remember, but they called some food like exotic that didn't feel exotic to me, and I was like, oh, it's funny what's different in different countries. Bok choy, was that the only thing?
Well, bok choy, pomegranate, and mango.
Oh yeah, she said something about like never having a pomegranate before or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and then she said the bok choy was hard to get. And it was just funny, like, I mean, we live in Tucson where like pomegranate trees grow
Yeah.
abundantly. So it was just funny to me of like, oh, okay, like that's a rare fruit in different places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, and there's another interesting layer to that as well, now that I think about it, because it's all there is kind of an overarching theme of the movie, or maybe not a theme, but like there's an overarching plot point with the mom of like how much work it takes to prepare a three-course meal, you know, like Cady is only over there because the mom claims she needs help preparing this meal. You know, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of extravagance put into it. And in the end, like it's completely overdone. Like all the extravagance is kind of just wasted, and not only wasted, but a detriment to the feast that they're trying to set up to schmooze this childhood friend.
Yeah. Even though, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to have somebody come randomly help out in the kitchen when you're making a big meal.
Sure.
Oh my god, one of the most horrific scenes in this freaking movie is Cady vomiting into the food and then just like covering it up and then serving it. I was like,
I wondered what her vomit actually was too.
Oh yeah, was it just lake water?
It did kind of just look like lake water. It was funny that like nobody seemed to notice. It was like strange tang to these rabbits.
Well, you never know with all the ingredients that they're throwing in.
Yeah, that's true.
I did find, and I'll admit I'm a little like bitter towards like general like veganism feelings. Like that this goddess of the land, like very connected to nature, would be upset about like an animal eating another animal.
Yeah.
That did not make a lot of sense to me personally, but It didn't ruin the movie. It was just like it did make me go like, okay, here we go in the beginning. So
yeah, I always thought I also didn't think that made a whole lot of sense for a goddess of the land to like be a vegan or a vegetarian by any stretch, because I mean, it's animals eat other animals. That's definitely a natural part of nature. Plants eat animals, animals eat plants. Like it's the circle of life. It just seems a little.
people eat dead mushrooms, and mushrooms eat dead people.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it just seems a little like this flowery vegan portrayal of like, you know, earth gods.
Yeah, but I would definitely call them, if I had to put it in like a genre, I would call it like eco horror.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like my thought on the movie too is that this goddess is omnipotent to some extent. I don't think she picked this day to show up and help out with this feast by accident. I think on some level she knew that the benefactor was coming over today, or she had some means of figuring that out, and she picked today to like kill Cotty, take her body, show up, and inflict madness on the whole family.
I do think omnipotent might be too strong a word, because that's like all powerful. Omniscient is all knowing.
Fine.
And I do think like she's very powerful and very knowing, but I wouldn't use the word omniscient personally.
Well, but we don't know. I guess it wouldn't make sense for her to be afraid if she was completely omnipotent ever. Because there are some instances where like the gunshots or the death of the rabbits kind of upsets her and scares her in a way that I don't think you would say she planned for or anything.
Yeah. I did think it was funny when she starts, like, one of her most human moments is when she's singing that song, and then the mom like starts singing it with her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's from my childhood," you know?
Yeah.
But you know what just dawned on me? She says she hasn't heard that song since her mother sang it, you know?
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking that might partially be a message of like, well, yeah, you're supposed to sing it. Now, you know, like you can't just let it die with your mother. Like it was your turn to be someone who sings this song. And also with part of that, like she's very disconnected from the legends of the land and stuff. Like,
yeah,
she's not carrying on any of that, any of her culture.
Well, and I mean, they overtly say, which I do think is interesting. They overtly say that, like, you know, sins of the father, and that, like, there's a bit of the father's shortcomings in his sons, but I would wager that, like, there's a little bit of symbolism around how around the mother's failures with her sons as well. Like, she doesn't sing that to her sons. Her sons went out to the rise, you know, and when there's a point where she's inflicted with madness, where she's become her mother, and she calls out that it's late, time to come home, and that's when her sons appear, and she, you know, admonishes them for going out to the rise and tells them, "I told you how many times not to do that." And so I wonder if there's a bit of like of also holding her accountable for how the sons have turned out. I mean, certainly she seemed to be the one. I mean, as far as like drug problems go in the musician's son, she seemed to be a lot more of an alcoholic than the father or anybody else there. Yeah,
Can I roll back a little bit?
sure.
Her screaming like, "I told you to never go to the rise," but then earlier she's talking to kind of trying to convince Mare that they should literally mine there.
Yeah.
You know, like it makes sense to me that her message to her sons of don't ever go out there is kind of lackluster. Like, how much does she believe that in its danger? You know?
Well, I don't think she believed in it at all at that point.
Yeah.
I think at that point she was like I said, she was inflicted with madness and she was living out as her mother.
I did not. I did really like the scene they had where she like sees her mother's face on top of hers and that like reflection. I guess I did not catch that she was being her mother.
I guess that was my presumption at that point. Like she's wearing her mother's dress. I think she's wearing her mother's earrings.
Yeah.
And now she's worried about the rise. She's given up like hunting for Caddy with, a fucking butcher knife. And now she's calling out for her children to come home as though like, time to come home. It's late. Like she just all of a sudden forgot that there's a wrathful goddess lurking about.
Yeah.
That's why I think she was inflicted with like a madness at that point. But I would also go back to like my earlier criticism that the movie kind of jumps around and some bits like that are a little hard to follow where like, okay, what is she doing now?
I did like there was a scene where Eros, that's the mining guy's name, right?
Yeah.
He's doing the eating. It reminded me a lot of Spirited Away when the parents get like stuck at that buffet and they turn into pigs.
Didn't see it.
From eating too much. Well, it reminded me of that, and I liked that.
Yeah, I thought that was a good shot though of like, a guy like just completely caught up in hunger.
Yeah. Yeah, great movie.
Yeah.
All around.
What else? I think there were some other interesting bits too that I noticed about like the doctor brother when there's a point where one brother early on gets his foot wounded in a way that didn't seem like it would have caused that bad of a wound.
It was definitely Caddy.
Yeah, like he gets wounded like right when she gets introduced or about when she gets introduced, almost like and the way it all happens, it's almost like she cast a spell on the head of the axe to like make it extraordinarily heavy or something. It's the only way I could explain that because like the head of the axe, he's got an axe, the head falls onto his foot, presumably
through
like
a boot.
Blade first through a boot, and it makes like a very solid cut, which didn't really make that much sense to me. Like I've used axes before, and most of the time they're not super sharp, especially for cutting wood, because you don't really need them to be.
It's about the leverage more, right?
Yeah, I think so. You don't really need them to be that super sharp. They're not cutting through flesh or anything. They're they just need enough pressure at the head to be able to like chop into wood, and you're splitting it apart. And even if it was like the head of an axe isn't usually that heavy either. I mean, it'll be heavier, but
Sorry.
Serves you right for shaking the camera. But yeah, the wound didn't look like it could have happened from what it happened from. And throughout the movie, his wound just gets worse and worse and worse till like his leg is basically like rotting off.
And there's maggots.
So then she yanks him out to the forest and grabs the doctor brother and brings him out to the forest and shows him the musician brother's leg and tells him he has to cut it off. And first of all, this is his brother. So theoretically, should be like, what the fuck happened to his leg? What the fuck is going on here? Like, why'd you bring me out? Why'd you bring him out here? Why don't we call a doctor or something? You know, like a little more concern for his brother seemed like it should have been in order. But then he's also a doctor too. And that also should have like given off, he should have had a similar reaction, you'd think, with what the hell? We need to get him to a hospital. We need to get him some antibiotics or something. And
that was something in the whole movie. And actually, there's a lot of movies that I feel like have this thing where people are very like non-reactive to what's going on. Like earlier, Eros, he's eating and like he's choking a little bit.
Yeah.
And he pulls a big chunk of hair out of his mouth. And just like, and nobody says anything. He doesn't say anything. It's just like, we're just going to keep on moving on with the night.
That's actually a good example, too, of how it jumps around.
Yeah. But and then even like the thing we talked about earlier where she's like doing all kinds of random stuff and nobody's like, hey, aren't you supposed to be working right now? You know, like it feels like nobody is reacting to what's going on.
It also just seems like characters pop up in very strange places for reasons that don't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, you know, when she's running away from the house because she got scared by the father, as she runs outside, and then the doctor brother just kind of pops out of the grass like, hey, where are you going? You don't need to be afraid. It's okay. It's like, the hell are you doing here? Where'd you come from? Like, or are you just laying out here randomly, or did you just pop out of the ground when the plot called you into existence? And then later on, when she like takes the musician brother out and gives him the mushrooms, it's like, again, the doctor brother is just kind of there, like out in the middle of the woods, just like, you know, almost like he's just there to creep on it. And like, even that bit, like nothing's really made of it.
Yeah. I did just realize though that the men all enjoy spending time outside and the mom doesn't go outside at all.
Oh.
She wants to go to her prison sauna.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because the father's into like hunting, both the like even the musician brother had brought all his music stuff to sit outside in the grass and play music, you know? Like,
yeah.
All the men are like a little bit more interested in spending time in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you mention that makes me think back and wonder if the mom ever actually goes outside apart from when she calls her children home.
Yeah.
So in a way, like, I would argue she never actually goes outside. It's when she's her mom that she goes outside.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe part of that. And then she has that weird abstract painting of the town, which I actually don't think something like that is like horrible, you know, but I do think there's a definitely like in the movie symbolism of like, okay, let's take away everything that's beautiful about this area and turn it into some like abstract thing that doesn't match any of the like colors or, you know, like.
Well, I think the way she talks about it too just seems like so so shallow, you know. Like she doesn't talk about it like it's. She doesn't even talk about it like it's anything special either.
Except that it costs $15,000 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. What else?
I wonder if even in the very first moment we see her, she's wearing like a charcoal face mask. I wonder if even that is a bit of like a anti-aging thing for her.
I did think it was interesting that the first couple of scenes do seem to be like her and the doctor brother like engaging in some vain practices to like, you know, maintain their looks.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a bit where like they've both kind of where he's inherited some of her vanity.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that one of the weak points of the movie is that there really isn't a whole lot of development or like characterization given to the father.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's
on purpose.
Maybe that's on purpose. Like he's kind of just because he was never really connected to the land, and he's always kind of maybe he's not really all that connected to anybody there. You know, he's just kind of the father figure shows up, delivers rabbits, and then ultimately like who knows what else he does. Like he doesn't seem to help.
Well, provide like money provided. The brothers make a joke about like if we laugh hard enough at his jokes, maybe his wallet will open back up again.
That was Eros. They were talking about.
Oh.
But like they're both hounding for daddy's money. Like Glinda even tells what the hell is his name? The doctor brother. It's the only one whose name I can't remember. Gwinter? Doctor brother. She like outright tells him that like, well, if you want your father to keep funding your triathlon stuff, you better show up at the table with everybody else.
Yeah.
So like, and they even talk about like a bit about like, you know, waiting for their parents to die so that they can get their inheritance. So like, yeah, it does seem like there's like maybe that is part of the point that the father's like the most disconnected from everybody there.
Do you think there was a specific meaning around the doctor brother having his own food, and it was like these perfect little cubes of what appeared to be beef to me, like raw beef?
Yeah.
But
I mean, the fact that he's eating meat. I mean, he also makes a point of talking about like how they're not really just like chunks of beef or anything. They are like, he makes a point of talking about how they're prepared and they're treated. So like, even though well, no, not even though nothing, like they might actually be the most exotic and processed pieces of food at that table, strangely enough.
when I wonder if there's something about him being like attempting to be this like perfect physical human specimen, you know?
Yeah.
But without working on his human soul or, you know, whatever, you know, like his personality or values.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
There's got to be some kind of symbolism in the fact that like he chokes on his food.
Yeah. One thing I was curious about is if Caddy caused him to choke on his food And then, or if that was actually an accident and the reason she pulled it out is because she wanted to make sure he got his glass vagina fate and didn't want him to die too soon.
I wouldn't be surprised if she inflicted that on him somehow. Well, not somehow. She's a fucking goddess who can kind of do whatever the fuck she wants. I wouldn't be surprised if she inflicted that on him as like a, you know, you're eating this processed food, you're eating this meat. This meat is the most, maybe the biggest affront to me of all. You choke on this. Now you choke on this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she did it. I just also think there's a possibility she didn't. Man, I was about to say something else.
Work on his soul?
No, it was kind of the movement of subject.
Oh
well. Look, movie top tier.
Top notch.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. I did also wonder if she maybe did, because like early on, she tells I suspected, we think that Caddy sabotaged the axe.
Mm-hmm.
I also there's a scene later where Eros shows up with this fancy bottle of wine and then drops it almost immediately when he's interacting with Caddy. I almost wondered if she made that happen too. Like she, I don't know, made the bottle heavy or something.
Yeah, I feel like she definitely made that one happen. She's gonna come get you, baby. Oh, we forgot to say I'm Benzie Holler.
You're Benzie Holler.
You're Devin Holler. And this was
You're Devin Holler.
The Holler Horror Hour. Do you have anything else to say about the feast?
H.
It looks pretty good. I wonder what the budget was. I tried to look it up and I couldn't find it. But it's a very small cast and only one location. So, yeah. It did 73,000 in box office, so it couldn't. There's no way it costed too much.
Wait, go back up.
Why?
Towards the top. Produced by, edited.
All the director, written by, produced by, none of them have wiki pages. Yeah. I don't know what the budget was, but thank you for joining us. Soon we'll be watching Mother, if that's a movie that excites you, with our friend who actually has a PhD focused on the horror genre. So she's extra cool. We don't deserve to have a guest that great yet, but
we do.
Yeah.
It's not about what you know. It's about who you know.
Take that.
Anyway, goodbye.